Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So it is not looking good for Rudy Giuliani. His future is just looking more and more bleak every day. First, his legal defense fund failed spectacularly. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Giuliani had set up a page on the crowdfunding site called Fundly. And he did this to try to raise money because his legal bills are just they have to be, I don't know exactly, but they have to be enormous at this point, and they're increasing every day. He's got so many legal issues going on right now, and he set a goal with that Fundly page of raising $5 million in 2 months. Well, as of this week, he had raised less than $10,000. That's pretty pathetic, considering how much work he did for Trump, and Trump didn't pay him, and now the MAGA crowd has just left him hanging. And the page has now been shut down. So with no explanation, they just shut it down. Well, then this week came the news that Washington, D.C., a court in Washington, D.C., I should say, followed New York's lead and suspended Giuliani's law license. So he now can no longer practice law in New York, and he can no longer practice law in DC. And the court said that his license will remain suspended until his New York case is settled, because New York has allowed him the opportunity to appeal their decision. If he can bring in documents or affidavits or witnesses or something to prove that he actually wasn't lying, that he knew or he believed that he was telling the truth, then they may reconsider. But as I've said, this New York ruling, not the overall suspension, I mean, that's bad, but what's written in the document itself could really tank Giuliani in regard to other various ongoing lawsuits, because it will be used against him, especially in regard to the Dominion and the Smartmatic defamation lawsuits. They're going to be all over this thing because it's really damning. And that's the thing that I don't believe, at least from what I've seen, it hasn't really gotten any press. Nobody's really talking about it in that context. I mean, in just the second paragraph alone, this committee of judges stated that, quote, "We conclude that there is uncontroverted evidence that respondent communicated demonstrably false and misleading statements to court, lawmakers, and the public at large in his capacity as lawyer for former President Donald Trump and the Trump campaign in connection with Trump's failed effort at re-election in 2020. So they're flat out saying he lied. He just flat out lied. He knew he was lying, and he did it anyway for Trump. And then they go on to cite specifics and the ways in which Giuliani lied. And they say that Giuliani could have easily verified with even a cursory review of data, whether it be provided by the states or making phone calls or just checking websites, simple things like that, speaking to officials in each area, he would have known that what he was saying was false. So, for example, they noted in this decision that Giuliani repeatedly stated that Pennsylvania counted approximately 700,000 more absentee ballots than the total number of absentee ballots that they mailed out, which were issued. He said Pennsylvania sent out just over 1.8 million absentee ballots, but that they received back over 2.5 million and counted them. However, the committee did a very simple review, looked at the data, and found that no, in reality, Pennsylvania nearly mailed out 3.1 million absentee ballots. So yeah, they sent out 3.1 million or more than that, received back over 2.5. Very realistic, right? And when Giuliani was asked to explain how he came to this obvious lie, how he came to this so-called fact, he pointed his finger at some member of his team, although he's never named this person. So Giuliani claims that this person got the information from the state's website, and so the state's site must have had an error on it. There must have been a mistake in posting the data. Yet Giuliani, like I said, has provided no name for this person, whoever this so-called team member is. He gave them no screenshot of this data that he says was there, no link to a cached page that maybe had been removed or changed. He never, like I said, even told them who this person is or provided a signed affidavit from this seemingly fictitious team member of his. And this is a lie that I still see to this day on right-wing media channels and websites. If you go in the comments section of these websites, people still believe this lie, even though he's provided nothing, no evidence to back up this lie. But the MAGA crowd is still lapping it up with a serving spoon. And that wasn't the only instance that they cited. They also cite his filings and that subsequent court appearance regarding the two men whose ballots were rejected erroneously. And you probably will remember this because they point out that even though Giuliani submitted an amended complaint in that case, and he removed all allegations of fraud, he removed any mention of fraud, he still tried to go into court and play word games with the judge and said that the lawsuit was alleging widespread fraud. But then the judge asked him, is it alleging fraud? And he said no. And then again, later he said yes. So yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. If you're not familiar with Little Britain, you got to watch it. But the committee also pointed out that Giuliani made false claims about ballots cast in the name of people who were deceased, right? This is a big thing on the internet. These Q people have signs talking about deceased people voting. And Giuliani kept changing the numbers in public statements. So sometimes he would say it was over 8,000 in Philadelphia. Other times he said that it was 30,000 in Philadelphia. And he used this same BS tactic in regard to Georgia. First, Giuliani said that he personally had the names of 800 dead people who he said cast ballots in 2020. Then he changed it. Then he said the number was actually in the hundreds of thousands, right? And then he said, oh no, it's in the thousands. And then he said it was 6,000. Then it went up again in January. I think it was, he was on an episode of his podcast. And he said it was a very specific number. He said 10,515. Then the committee notes that the Georgia Secretary of State investigated this claim. They actually looked into it. What they found was that only two people cast a ballot in the name of a deceased person, and they're looking into it. And they are going to prosecute if there's a case, because you don't know, did that person cast the ballot and then they passed away after the fact? We were in the midst of a global pandemic, so yeah, that could have happened. And they specifically called Giuliani out for his lies about the former boxer, Joe Frazier. He kept saying that Joe Frazier has voted for years after his death. So just like with so many other of these election deniers, he doesn't do any research. He doesn't look into it at all. He just parrots everything he hears online. He just propagates these lies. So if he had checked, as this committee did, he would have known it's a bunch of bullshit. It's a total lie that someone started spreading, because the committee said that Pennsylvania canceled Frazier's eligibility to vote following his death in 2012. Sometimes I think that people on the left are punking people on the right by starting obvious, blatant, easily verifiable lies, and to see if they can get them to pick it up and run with them. And apparently, Giuliani told the committee about this particular lie oops, my bad. I relied on a blogger for that information. Seriously? Seriously? This is where Trump's Kraken legal team is getting all of their evidence from blogs, from memes? Really? That's what they keep saying. There's evidence. We have evidence of widespread voter fraud. We haven't seen it, but there's evidence. Yeah, that word, evidence. You keep using this word. I do not think it means what you think it means. I seriously don't think they know what that word means. But here's the thing that I think probably made Dominion's day when they read it, because the committee mentions in this decision that Giuliani's claims of fraud in the Georgia election specifically involved Dominion. And then they note how there was a hand recount. So they say that this process, quote, confirmed the results of the election with a 0% risk limit. So they're saying no chance that there was fraud after they did the hand recount and everything checked out, everything was verified. In addition, they pointed out that Giuliani made these assertions about Georgia and about Dominion, both during the hand recount, so while it was still going on, so he couldn't have known what the result was going to be. But then even more damning is that he repeated those same lies again after the hand recount, after it had concluded. So, once again, in this instance, Giuliani provides no evidence to the committee to back up his claims. Instead, he told the committee in regard to this lie that he relied on an expert. Yeah, quote, expert, right? And that he had affidavits from these people. So one of the people who he says he had an affidavit from is a man named Brian Geels. That's Geels. Evidently, this Geels guy claimed that 65,000 people registered to vote before their 17th birthday. Now, the committee looked into it, and as did the state of Georgia, and they found that only 4 people under the age of 18 requested a ballot. And all 4 of them turned 18 prior to the 2020 election. So they did nothing wrong. It wasn't illegal. And the committee noted that even if Geels was correct, even if 65,000 people had requested ballots under the age of 17, Giuliani still lied. He still inflated the numbers even more because he was going around telling people that there were 165,000 underage requests. So, is it his age and his faulty memories? Like people say, he just drinks a lot and maybe he doesn't remember these numbers. So on top of all that, Giuliani didn't even bother to turn Geels' alleged affidavit over to the committee for review. And they said that they have no idea where Geels purportedly gets his information from. And this Geels guy was also quoted by Giuliani as saying, quote, there could have been, that's a direct quote, could have been more than 2,500 incarcerated felons who voted. So that's what Giuliani considers to be a fact. That's what he considers to be evidence of widespread voter fraud. Some guy randomly speculating and positing that, thousands of felons could have voted. Thousands of monkeys could have voted. Thousands of giraffes could have voted. Thousands of Martians could have voted. Seriously, thousands of aliens could have come down from another planet and voted. Oh my God. Jesus God. This is the expert. This is the expert testimony that these morons relied on as proof of voter fraud. And speaking of expert testimony, other than Giuliani referring to this Giles guy as an expert, the committee said they have no idea what his area of expertise actually is or how he qualifies as an expert. The committee actually wrote, which was very funny, it said, merely providing names and conclusory assertions that respondent had a basis for what he said does not raise any disputed issue about whether misconduct has occurred. So in other words, you may be able to fool faux news channel viewers with all these BS claims that some random unknown guy is an expert and he gave you evidence, but we actually require proof. We actually need proof here to back up your bullshit. And time and again throughout this committee's ruling, they kept calling out Giuliani's failure to review real evidence or perform his duties. I mean, they didn't put it in that way, but it was obvious that they were saying like, hey, if you had just looked into this, you would have known. Like the so-called suitcases of these fake ballots. I'm sure you guys heard about this. Everybody on the right was all up in arms. Oh my God, there were suitcases stored under the tables and they pulled them out after everybody left and blah, blah, blah. I mean, first of all, just common sense tells you if they're going to have fake ballots, do you think they would put them under the tables where anyone could find them? And they explained in this committee's findings how the videos were specifically edited. These videos were completely misleading. They were shaved down and certain portions were taken out to make it appear as if something nefarious took place. I mean, first of all, they said these weren't suitcases, they were boxes. They were legitimate official boxes of ballots. And they made it sound on the right like these suitcases, as they call them, were taken out after everybody left. But they said if you had viewed the entire video, if you looked at it in its entirety, it would be easy for anyone, not their words but mine, with a functioning brain to see that there was nothing there. Yes, people put these boxes under the table. They were leaving for the night. And then a supervisor, somebody came in and said, no, we want you guys to keep counting for another half hour. And so they took them back out and continued counting. But of course, nobody on the right is ever going to read this finding. Nobody on the right is ever going to watch the video in its entirety. Or very few will actually take the time who actually want to know the truth. But yeah, this is why these things just snowball and it's spread everywhere before you have a chance to get the truth out there. But the committee also cited Giuliani's changing figures about undocumented citizens voting in the election. I mean, he didn't refer to them as undocumented citizens, first of all, but he said first that it was a few 100,000 who likely voted in Arizona. And then he said it was more than 10,000, which is a big difference. And then in an interview with Steve Bannon on his podcast, he said that the bare minimum was 40 to 50,000, but the reality was that it was like 250,000 in Arizona. I mean, so he's all over the place. Then at an even later date, he changed the figure again, and then he gave a very specific number of 32,000. So, once again, Giuliani provided no evidence to back this up, no sworn affidavits, couldn't tell them where he got this information. You would think if ever there was a time, this is it. This is it, Giuliani. This is your moment. I mean, think about that. Consider that. Giuliani is facing potentially losing his license permanently losing his ability to practice law. It's do or die time right now. It's time to put up or shut up, right? As my grandmother used to say, shit or get off the pot. And Giuliani has been licensed as an attorney since 1969. Decades. This guy was a prosecutor, for God's sakes. He prosecuted the mafia. And this is, or at least it was, his primary source of income. And we all know he's in deep right now. He's in massive debt. Yet facing this monumental challenge, facing potential ruin, a life-altering decision by this committee to take his license away, possibly for good, disbar him, losing his livelihood, and he still can't come up with a shred of evidence to back up his allegations. He still has not provided any information to the committee to show that there was widespread voter fraud. Everything he has is hearsay and gossip. Think about that. And then consider there are still millions and millions of Americans out there who still believe this bullshit. It just blows my mind. I don't know how you're that brainwashed. You know, I mean, I guess when you want to believe something, it's easy to be fooled because you want to believe that it's true. I guess they just want to believe so bad that there was voter fraud and that Trump isn't a loser, that they're willing to ignore the fact that if Giuliani had anything, if any of these people had anything, this is it. This is when they would lay it on the table. This is when they would use it to save themselves. And then to top all of this off, Dominion just subpoenaed emails between Giuliani and Fox News. Not just him, but they subpoenaed emails, if they exist, between Mike Lindell and Fox and Sidney Powell and Fox. If they find any type of collusion or conspiring to spin this narrative, it is game over. These people are done. So, like I said, it's do or die time. If he has anything, you would think that this would be the time when he would show it. And if he doesn't, well, there you go. Anyway, guys, but they call us sheep, right? All right, I'll keep you guys posted. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.